There are 5 consistent versions of everything. Everyone explains almost everything, but not quite everything. To date, nobody understands why there are 5 versions of everything. So that's a quote from a very dank video on string theory, and it's currently the impasse modern physicists are at in their quest to unravel the mystery of the 5 superstrings that supposedly compose the entire universe. Now, where did I find this information? Like a hobbit picking up the One Ring in the most unlikely of places. In my research for Yogacara, the ideology, the Buddhist one that Nojima had told us, is a core structural tenet of the FF7 trilogy narrative, where we just learned that there are definitively 5 stamped timelines in the Rebirth. This is going to be one hell of a dive into the turbulent waters of science and the metaphysical. And I do love this kind of content because I think it's become pretty commonplace for us to consider science and religion as completely different and even contradicting fields, right? Science undermines religion and religion dismisses science, right? Actually not really, because in my time I've actually stumbled across many fascinating topics, whether it was the Tao of physics, the case of Giordano Bruno, Nikola Tesla, Paracelsus, the father of toxicology, the alchemy of the Hermetics, the kabbalist mathematicians, or the astronomers and nature philosophers of ancient Greece. There's so many examples where the boundaries of known and unknown were breached via methods that were not, I'd say, following the most direct path of logic or clear rationale. And I think I've just discovered a new one that could actually explain the entire building blocks of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and one that is so juicy it had me wilding out on Twitter. Goddamn maniac. You have suffering cause suffering. Have mercy. Wow. Hearts. Shit on your dick Tuesdays at Domino's. The power of friendship. True nature of reality cloud. Oh my god. This is what Nojima's been digesting. The nutter. Monster something here. So come with me on a little journey with Uncle Pez and stay to the end of this video as we explore the sphincter clenching frontiers of the boundless freedom that truly makes up Final Fantasy VII. It was cool seeing the predictions of 5 worlds that I made almost a year ago got confirmed. I mean, good God, where does the time go? Square came out on stage and told us definitively there are indeed 5 stamped timelines in the Rebirth. And in case you didn't see it, my predictions, that is, the 5 that I said that would be in Rebirth was based on the 5 worlds of the Kabbalah. The worlds being Asaya, Bariah, Atzilut, Yetzirah, and Adam Kadmon. And to me, these perfectly explained a logical possibility within the life stream in FF7, because they all correspond to different stages that a world of soul operates through, in terms of things like death, rebirth, ego, awareness, spiritual corruption, climb paths, and fundamentally the gateway to eternity, otherwise known as the Ein Sof, endless infinity itself. Now, we've had Aerith and Sephiroth literally smack talk at each other over the concept of eternity and the presence of the 5 stamped timelines, so I feel pretty confident I was looking in the right direction. But what do I mean by right? Because since the moment we learned of Zack's return and we saw that stamped crisp packet flip past his chunky ass boot, the fanbase had been conceptually split in how they perceived these quote-unquote timelines. Let's be real, we all fell to one side or the other. Some leaned into an interpretation of parallel timelines, multiverse, and oftenly despairingly described as the Marvel bullshit. Others like me took more, spiritual interpretations. That in a world like FF7, there is zero necessity for it to conform to strict timeline rules, or in fact any rules. Worlds or dimensions could gladly be based on concepts like purgatory, the mental, the conceptual. We've got Zack back from the dead. We're walking through doorways of destiny, flying through the sky, fighting goddamn fate, and standing in deep space 7 seconds before the entire cosmos comes to an end. Does it look like strict scientific rules of logic are being followed here. So we've had these two very different mindsets occupying the story and from the fans, and it's often, and I'm included in this, been the case that we've dismissed or refuted the counter side's perception based on where our biases are. But what if we were all right? What if all of us were correct? But what if also we were all wrong? What if the answer has always been both, neither, and fundamentally what can't be explained in one lens of looking at the story can only be explained through the other in one of the grandest paradoxes that has divided not just the Final Fantasy fan base, but has arguably divided humans and the human condition for millennia. What if the war of science and religion is actually being challenged in Final Fantasy VII Remake, a game that has always included both religion and science, and the FF7 Remake is making commentary going so big brain and 5D chess that it is going to challenge and force us to grapple with these two polarities in a way that very few games have ever achieved before. Alright, enough preamble. Let's dive in head first. Classes on. The 5 worlds of the Kabbalah. So that is itself a religious text filled to the brim with Jewish mysticism, but also it's predominantly a mathematical approach to interpreting the universe. So it consists of, for reasons too complex to explain here, 9 sephirots, but it is in fact 8 sephirots within 5 core worlds, and it's kind of the 9th one that conjoins those worlds. So it's basically a configuration of 8 and 5. 8 within 5. That is how the Kabbalists explain the structure of the universe. That's what I base my 5 worlds prediction on. But was I shocked, oh boy, to discover Yogacara 2 has this exact configuration. So the Buddha reveals in the Pali Canon that the world is made of the 5 aggregates, of which the 8 forms of consciousness are contained. Now those 5 aggregates are the world of form, sensation, perception, mental, and conscious formations. So it's basically a mix of material and mental factors that all take part in the rise of craving and clinging. They are also basically the 5 core tenets of what constitutes every living being's person and personality, including perception, memory, and even psychological polarities of things like suffering, despair, liberation, hopes, and dreams. Cue Cosmo Canyon NPC.
It addressed the issue of what the live stream is, arguing that spiritual energy is actually a manifestation of our knowledge and memories. Like I said, it's a fascinating theory, but it's incomplete. What about our hopes and dreams? We remember those, don't we? So what if spiritual energy doesn't distinguish between our real, lived memories and the unrealized desires buried deep in our hearts?
So this line is actually surprisingly one of Rebirth's most powerful and game-changing lines when it comes to narrative expansion of the live stream, because it makes sense that human memory is so much more than just an accurate recount of history. I'm not going to go too deep, but while experts continue to debate how accurate memory is, within that you get some stating it to be as low as 40%, while other experts go as high as 90%. But regardless, it's commonly agreed that no person really remembers the vast majority of their life. That the bulk of what we experience in life is gone, never to be recalled. And this is mostly because the process of encoding, storage, and retrieval is highly limited in the human brain. And that's just talking about conscious memory, because there's no real knowing how vast the pools of our unconscious psyche or soul goes. What does remain imprinted down in those hidden depths that will one day make its way into the live stream? What if dreams are just as significant as real memory? Aerith in Maiden Who Travels the Planet once said, maybe she should be clear about her affections towards Cloud here. Then maybe they would be seen as family or lovers. Now in Rebirth, here we have Aerith getting clarity about her relationship. Like doesn't necessarily mean like. Another quote from Aerith, during her lifetime in Midgar, she felt many souls of the ones that tried to confess their love. Those that still had those feelings, or had those feelings left behind them, could strongly retain their consciousness as a whole. And now in Rebirth we have couples clamouring for pictures with their loved ones. Livestream Chapter White also articulates that Aerith dreamed to be with Cloud again, that she wanted to return to the surface and basically have a date with him again. And here it is all happening in the Rebirth in an entirely new stamped timeline. I think it was Spitz. I think some people were saying it was Pomeranian, but I'm pretty sure it's Spitz. It's basically a world where souls get to experience the optimism of their dreams and potentially what the Buddha described as the mental aggregate. The mental aggregate is one of the 5, and that's mental activity or influences from a previous life. Sephiroth found Aerith hiding within the lifestream's manifested dimension of Omni Aerith's dream post her death in OG. Deep and proof of that Cosmo Canyon NPC's theory, in my opinion. So yeah, this inclusion of hopes and dreams being weaved into the mechanics of the live stream is huge, because the live stream is the very building blocks of reality. And so what constitutes the live stream becoming even more mental and incorporating things like hopes and dreams does so much, because now you suddenly have hopes and dreams actually being able to create reality, new realities, new dimensions, and could even go some way to also explain why the Shiva and Pug dimension were made by Zack, because Zack is inherently a powerful dreamer. He is the embodiment and symbol of hope, but it also presents an absolutely bonkers, insane, terrifying possibility on the empty white materia in Cloud's possession, because that is now absent of Aerith's memory. And if we now can assume that memory also includes hopes and dreams, what hopes could a deeply broken and conflicted character like Cloud possess? What dreams will he manifest at Journey's end? My theory is the total annihilation of the entire Italian Senate. Yay! But he's got 7 seconds to decide. Let's see what he'll do with it. Don't you just love science? How crazy, wacky, and almost higher than high fantasy it can seem at times. Don't you also love hearing about it from someone who's neither educated nor intelligent enough to actually explain it? Good, great, I'm glad. Because that's what's about to happen. So, string theory to me is a cool concept, because my brain likes to imply that it turns the whole universe more into an ever-playing song. An infinite melody, more than just a big expanse of emptiness and matter. So basically we've scaled down into matter to the level of quarks, and they're below atoms and below neutrons. We've got as low as quarks, but then the question appears again, well, what's inside of a quark? And that's where string theory comes in. The theory is that it's just that, strings of filament-like energy that, like a plucked string on a violin, will create a vibration, but instead of a musical note, it creates matter, like neutrinos and quarks. And then up and up it goes into the world of matter as we know it. Now, if that is true, because it is just a theory, then really all matter, all physical substance that we feel, touch, and perceive is no more than a dancing, vibrating cosmic symphony. And that's so freaking cool. Because maybe, even if you are the most science-minded person, we don't need to think of the Hindus who had the theory of Tandava, which was the musical dance of Shiva being what created the universe. Or, I don't know, even when Christians say in the beginning was the word, or Buddhists believing that Om, you know Om? I'll give you one. This is going to be beautiful. Om. You've probably heard this before. They believe that is the vibrating sound of creation itself. If string theory is correct, then all of those theories, religious or otherwise, may not be as ludicrous as they were once believed. But back to the science. So string theory is also largely an attempt to merge quantum mechanics with Albert Einstein's general theory of relativity. So science is basically operating under a gridlock of 2 theoretical premises that often contradicted and seemed at odds, conflicted with one another, and finding a unification between them became the work of many physicists. And This is where string theory and also the search for quantum gravity began. And from this field, this exploration of physicists, became a rather precise number of possibilities. Can you guess the number, guys? It's 5. Just like the Kabbalists, the Buddhists, the stamped timeliney brain of Nojima, there's 5 core string theories, or what they sometimes call the 5 superstrings. Now, like I said at the beginning, produce 5 consistent versions of everything. Everyone almost explains everything, but not quite everything. What's cooler is these theories, these 5, operate within a particular environment called the ADS CFT correspondence. Now, this is basically 2 different universes. Theoretical universes that are opposites. One is called the anti-de Sitter universe, or a contracting universe with only gravity, and the other universe is called the conformal world, one that is expanding, and these 2 sides are completely different, but also strangely familiar. Each side has the capacity to resolve the equations and the mysteries that are near impossible to explain in the other. One reflects and mirrors and can also construct the other, yet they are fundamentally different. And when I heard this, it really reminds me of FF7, because while we have the 5 aggregates, the 5 worlds of the Kabbalah, the 5 step timelines, and now the 5 superstrings, what do they all exist within? Well, like ADS CFT correspondence, what we know with FF7 is it also all operates within 2 core worlds, right? So we saw in the reunion of worlds, 2 core orbs, spheres, universes coming or beginning to come into collision. And like we've heard from both people in Aerith's dream and in Zack's reality, which you could chalk up to World of Livestream or World of Chaos, World of Optimism or Pessimism, Hope, Despair, a world where the souls seem to be expanding versus the one in Zack's that seem to be contracting. They both say the world is coming to an end. Taking a step back, right there we have 5 timelines within the reunion of 2 polarized worlds. And that is exactly the same as the 5 superstrings in string theory being within the ADS CFT correspondence environment. How cool is that? And the comparison, the equivalent, I suppose, 5 being within 2 in Buddhism's Yogacara, is that the 5 aggregates exist within 2 realms of existence, and those being suffering and the end of suffering. Now, does that not seem pretty in line with Sephiroth and Genova's World of Chaos, the little suffering sowers, the Terror Corrupt that we saw in Advent Children, Black Whispers versus White Whispers? You've got Sephi Nova's world, and then you've got Aerith's dreams of the souls finding liberation. The strings in string theory are the seeds of karma in Yogacara. Another cool comparison is that science took the solar system we live in from being seen as geocentric. So this was like way back in the day, when people believed the Earth was at the center of our solar system. Science got it up to heliocentric, which is all the planets are moving around the sun, so our localized star. And of course, science now knows there's an infinite number of heliocentric models throughout the universe. The parallel with Yogacara is they don't think it's heliocentric, they think the universe is being-centric. Basically, that infinite beings are in the universe experiencing their own universe. And in the endless seat and the infinity of their soul, because souls never end, that is what creates infinity. That consciousness itself builds reality. And of course, this is what the live stream is and how FF7 interprets it. But even physicists who have done extensive work and made contributions to string theory and science itself, people like Max Planck, even they have started speaking about it in this context. A quote from Max Planck: "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness." This is a very intriguing and I think central way of viewing FF7, because it really does merge the metaphysical and the science, returning to the planet, environmentalism, nature, but also technology progress, invention, even something like Genova herself, like a soul-reading parasite that worms its way and does its malevolent work on the conscious and the psychic level. But then you also have the biological component of the S cell program, the G cell, and that has existed from the very beginning of FF7's conception. I think that's a perfectly reasonable way to view the stamped timelines and the world configuration now. Because going back to saying, heliocentric is a model of seeing the solar system, and Yogacara seeing it as being centric, the notion that we all create our own little separate pocket universes and dimensions, we live in universes all of our own making, that's actually part of the 5 aggregates. The concept behind 5 stamped timelines and why they've arrived at 5, because taking just another one of the aggregates, one of them, the mental one, could be Aerith's dream day, just taking the aggregate of form, they say that that is the co-created universe we all live in. Buddhists believe that much like the live stream is a co-created space of the collective, and that's what gives us the perception of all living in the same reality, the same universe. But once the other aggregates of sensation, perception, mentalism and consciousness are included, that actually we live in completely separate ones, and an infinite number of dimensions begin to branch. Much like, I guess, Sephiroth told to Cloud. And I know what you're wondering, okay, Pez, but what does all this mean for the actual story, son? Well, my little impatient sausage. I've kind of run out of time. I don't want to make these videos too long. I have a bad habit, and there's still so much to cover, so you'll have to subscribe and hit the bell button. The deeper dive will be coming next. I hope that this has been interesting, and given what I think is a pretty remarkable and synced theory possibility on the universe structure in FF7 Remake, how it's configured, what is possible, and why, in a remarkable way, whether you're a creepy cretinous Hojo type looking at this from the lens of science, or you're a shaman hippie Aerith type looking at it through the spiritual and metaphysical, that both are actually surprisingly on the table for being relevant, by the very nature that string theory and Yogacara have a shocking number of parallels. And I will leave you guys on a tease. So the 8 forms of consciousness. The 7th is known as the defiled mental consciousness. Sound like anyone we know? So it's called defiled because it is focused inwards upon the ground of all, or the alaya, which is a word Buddhists use to describe where awareness of self and emptiness meets. Definitely sounds like the place where Cloud is right now, and he's going to continue to go through. And basically, being in this place, the consciousness mistakes itself for a substantial self. And this is a core flaw in the perception of a person stepping into or discovering their true self. And the result of it is that all experience is subsequently divided into 2 worlds, the wanted and the unwanted. I found that so powerful to read. When you consider, is that not what's just occurred at Aerith's death? Like, it really is just that. A reality split in Cloud's world between what he wanted to save Aerith and have her alive, versus the world where she died at Sephiroth's hands, and the party mourns the sorrow of her passing. But more on that in another video. Cloud got roughly yeeted into the 7th stage of consciousness, and his world is fundamentally splitting between wanted and unwanted. That will do for a groundwork video and lay of what's going to go into much deeper concepts. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Tippity tap something down below. Get the live stream of my algorithm flowing again, or even better, share this with someone you know might be interested. See you on the next video. Kupo!